Favorite.
So one thing that I think happens is that a lot of the people who are in IT consulting today have a very different story than the people who got into it 15 or 20 years ago. And the primary difference is when you and I got into this business, you had to be a consultant. You actually had to say, what's your problem? And I will solve it. And we often solved it with programming, with installing some new thing that the client had never heard of. We were taking on big challenges and fixing them. Skip ahead 20 years. If you got in this business in the last 5 or 10 years, you probably bought a book, got a formula, and you do the exact same thing as 99% of the other people who are in your business. And so when somebody says, oh, you got to add something else to your bundle that you've never heard of before, that's going to change your life and it's bigger than anything and whatever, you're just like, okay, I'm going to wait until it's second generation. And, those slow adopters that you hear so much about, I think a lot of them own managed service businesses.
So today we've got a good friend and colleague, Karl Palachuk. He needs no introduction. We'll give him a little bit one, but I want to share, Karl, how we met. All right. And I don't know if you recall.
Oh, yes, of course.
That's right. So
My
I
goodness.
called you out of the blue. I was in Sacramento for some reason or near Sacramento. And I said, I see this guy's name everywhere. I just want to meet the guy. So called you up and said, hey, man, can we want to go get a drink? Want to get some Mexican food? And you were very gracious to say yes. And you were the first kind of like industry celebrity that I got the opportunity to meet. And there weren't a lot of them back in 2010 or whenever that was. So Karl, what's been going on in your world? What's kind of the theme of Karl's life today, having done this for at least 20 years now?
Well, so,
You're doing what you do for 20 years.
so you want to catch up on 20 years?
Yeah, get yourself. Yeah, take the whole thing.
So,
Oh,
most recently, we have really enjoyed doing additional meetings in the community, the small business thoughts community. And I am trying to notch out time to write more books. In 2011, after my divorce was final,
yes.
uh, I wrote down in January 2011, I want to write more, I want to speak more, I want to travel more. And I redesigned my business and my life to do that, and exceeded all of my wishes on that score until COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I was literally traveling, a couple months total a year, in terms of vacation, right?
Yeah.
And it was 2 days here and 5 days there and 2 weeks here. Um, and just, and because I get to write on the beach, it was perfect for me. And, so then, it's just been, like a drag. I'm about to come out with a book and I hope another one will be out in January. But it's been slow getting back to that because, it takes time.
Oh, for sure. And managed services in a month, that was probably, in my mind, that was your big breakout book. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's sort of interesting. It's the one that's lasting. My
Yeah.
actual breakout, was the network, documentation workbook,
Oh, okay.
which, Harry Brailsford agreed
Mhm.
to help me distribute, way back in the day, like 2005.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm trying to remember the exact number, but I think we sold like 6 or 7,000 of those in a
Whoa.
year,
Whoa.
which in for any self-published book is out of this world, and for a
Uh,
lot of professionally published books, big books, that's a lot. So that sort of set me up to start traveling and talking to
I know.
crowds and training people. And you and I've met several times at the old SMB Nation events.
Yes, yes.
So, anyway, but managed services in the month is the one that lasts. And, it's funny because I resist being called a celebrity because I got to tell you what, I'm now at the point with all the gray hairs that nobody knows my name anymore. What they
Right.
know is, oh, well, is that the guy who wrote that book? Oh, yeah.
That's right.
They know the book, but they have no idea who the author is.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Yeah, that's that book. I remember when it was first released, and I was probably a little bit of a hater, and then I read it, and I was like, God damn it. That's exactly how I feel about all this stuff. So I was like, why didn't I write it? And, why didn't I do that? So this is not my thing. I'm just so glad you did. And we were talking a minute ago about our a mutual friend and colleague of ours that, he got that book when he was probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 million in revenue. And he's a smart guy who does not lack in confidence and does not lack in conviction in his ideas. And, I was just sharing with you now, he's well closer to the 15 million now, and he still gives that book full credit for
Wow.
everything. So,
You know, what's
uh,
funny? A lot of people put me in this pigeonhole that I help people, get started and get their first client.
mhm,
And but I have lots of people in my community and that I coach with who are 5, 10, 20, 150 million,
yeah,
and none of those are startups.
no, no.
So, but I'm stuck in that pigeonhole and it's because of that book.
Ah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, it is interesting. I think the typical size company we work with at Barry McKinley here is probably 2 million, but we've got, at any given time, a dozen guys, $500,000 in revenue.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them have been there forever. Some of them are just, they're passing through. But whether we're working with the $5 or $10 million guy or the $500,000 guy, they don't like hearing it, but it's the basic blocking and tackling that just prevents them from the profitability they want, or just the lack of stress that they're seeking or that they want to seek. So, yeah, I hate that's an interesting observation that you get pigeonholed. Yet, what you're saying to those folks probably isn't radically different from what you're telling the guy who's getting into the $50 million
I
range.
mean, it is back to basics.
Yeah.
You know, uh, the old football saying, hit them hard, hit them fast, hit them slow, hit them low, and if they get up,
Yeah.
hit them again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is exactly that. There's just you got to do what you got to do.
That's right. That's right. Well, Carl, when I think of when you started, I think you were further along in 2005 than I was. My start was really 2003. In fact, you were probably doing it well before 2005, but um, in that kind of 2008-9 era, it was you, it was Taylor Business Group where I was. HTG was making a big name. Harry Brailsford was a name, but those were the sources of information. Now it is so many people out there, sharing information and really good at the sharing of information. Do you notice the same landscape where it's just like, whoa, there's a lot of experts out there sharing
Yep.
a lot of information?
Well, so there's some of that, and I would say the ones who become very well known are, for the most part, really good at what they do.
Yes.
But it's also the case that there's so much money in managed services that some people just decide, oh, I'll go there because they got all the money, and I'll help them, right? And
Yes.
they may or may not have ever run an IT business or maybe even any business, but
Right.
they took a class on a Saturday and now they're a coach.
Right. Right.
So people do have to be I don't know, careful. It's just like anything else. Get references,
Yes.
ask people. I will say this, the the opportunities are greater than they've ever been because it's hard to throw a rock without finding a community of people who want to help each other.
Yeah.
And that's always been the case in this industry. And I don't think there's many industries where that's as true as it is in IT.
I don't have any, empirical data on that, but I think that's very true. It is. In fact, I was just doing a great interview with a real small company, Venezuelan family. They've been here for like 6, 7 years, and they're getting their traction as an MSP, and they just kept coming back to like how generous this community is. They say we go to a ConnectWise event or whatever they go to. They're like, if we just ask anybody, hey, this is what we do, how do you do it? People are just like, here's the playbook, I do it like this and this and this. And
Right.
he just loved that. That was very important to him, and it reminded me how true that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, even like sitting across the table, complete strangers, there's a round table, then you're just sitting across at lunch. and somebody asks about, I'm trying to do this, and everybody go, "Oh, here's what I do, and it's a product I use, and here's how I did that the
Yes.
first time, and here's what I learned," and it's like, wow.
Yes. It's cool. In fact, I'll get maybe 10 times a year I'll have somebody makes an appointment with me, or one of our appointment setters gives me an appointment, and I always look them up on Google and or LinkedIn rather, and maybe ten a year I'll get someone where it's like, we only have 3 people in common. We have 1 person in common. What and you've been in business for however many years and you're doing pretty well. It's incredible.
Yep.
Like normally if I have an MSP that's been around for more than 10 years, we've got 200, 300 people, in
Right.
common. But to find the person where it's like, "Oh, you haven't played in this at all. You have lots of connections, just none that I share." I don't know if you've ever noticed,
Oh,
or
yeah.
paid attention to that as well.
Well, when people want to connect on LinkedIn and then we got like 1 or 2 connections, I'm like, "Okay, I don't even know if this is a real profile."
Right. That's exactly
So
right.
I open it up and say, "Okay, do they have education, training, relevant jobs?" Because there are fake profiles on LinkedIn, so,
Yes, yes,
the
very true.
20-year-old who has 20 years experience as an oil, millionaire, say, "Okay, whatever."
I'll tell you, well, nothing makes me feel older than, a rep from a vendor, connecting with me, and I'm like, You've been doing this for 3 years. You're the senior VP of, sales and marketing at this vendor that I know very well." Like, it just you see these people that got started in the teens of 2013, 15. I'm like, "Oh, you're just still a baby. You're just so new. How are you have so much responsibility?" It's insane.
Well,
It's
it's
insane.
also the case that there's these waves, and you mentioned the 2008, 2009. I've talked many times. I think two things happen in conjunction with each other right at that point. One is that the recession hit, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people left the industry because they had to, or they got a job, or whatever. At the same time, I'd been preaching cloud services for like 12 years. And suddenly, you know, in the middle of that, a lot of people showed up and said, "Hey, we're just going to be cloud only," and it never occurred to them to start a business putting servers in people's offices, right?
Right.
And then almost immediately people realized exchange is half the problems in your business. So put that in the cloud, and it becomes much easier to be in this business. So there's this huge watershed of people leaving because some of those people who left literally said, "I'm not going to learn a new technology."
We'll be right back with more, but first, here's a quick message from Baring McKinley.
Most MSPs are constantly busy, chasing tickets, projects, and fires. But without structure, it's hard to know if the business is really improving. Vision from Baring McKinley is the system that helps you work on your business, not just in it. It connects leadership strategy with daily execution. Vision aligns people, process, and performance, creating clarity and rhythm from goals to results. And the Vision app brings that structure to life, helping you create policies, track goals, review KPIs, and collaborate with your BMK consultant all in one place. Behind it all, Jetson AI, your assistant inside Vision, helps you find answers, generate insights, and take action faster. With Vision, you gain visibility, accountability, and measurable growth. You're not guessing, you're improving. Vision, Jetson, and the Vision app, your path from strategy to results. Start transforming your business today.
All right, let's get back to the conversation.
And
Right.
we're seeing this again. I know you've heard people say, "I'm not learning AI because I'm not going to learn one more technology."
Right.
And
You know,
that's a killer for your business.
it's been so enlightening to me over the last probably 2 years that I really started trying to develop a thesis around AI and the MSP, and, being able to talk to so many people every week. It's about 50-50, of, like, some people just MSP owners hating on it. It's like, oh, great, just roll their eyes and yeah, our clients want to do it, and they kind of act like their clients are dumb or impetuous or whatever, and I'm just like, all right, that's cool. The other 50%, they're lukewarm at best. I haven't seen the, and maybe I didn't really consider the idea that it's like, oh, another thing to learn. I think that's probably very true. Um, I don't know what's going on. From my vantage point, I'm like, if you're not talking automation and AI with your clients, you're just missing a huge
Yeah.
opportunity.
Do you mind if I piss off your audience?
Please,
Okay.
please. That's my
So,
favorite.
so one thing that I think happens is that a lot of the people who are in IT consulting today have a very different story than the people who got into it 15 or 20 years ago. And the primary
Mm,
difference is when you and I got into this business, you had to be a consultant. You actually had to say, what's your problem? And I will solve it. And we often solved it with programming, with installing some new thing that the client had never heard of. We were taking on big challenges and fixing them.
mm,
Skip ahead 20 years. Uh, if you got in this business in the last, 5 or 10 years, you probably bought a book, got a formula, and you do the exact same thing as 99% of the other people who are in your business. And so when somebody says, "Oh, you got to add something else to your bundle that you've never heard of before, that's going to change your life, and it's bigger than anything, and whatever," you're just like, "Okay, I'm going to wait until it's second generation." And those slow adopters that you hear so much about, I think a lot of them own managed service businesses.
yeah. That resonates very, very well. It's not being a technologist myself. I always have a little uncertainty on my ideas around it. I look at the modern MSP model, and if you zoom out just a little bit and just get out of your own head, it's like, what are you doing? You aren't solving new unique problems for your clients the way you may have had to earlier days. You're doing still great important work, ensuring security, ensuring access, but you're not having to problem solve. And this AI and automation piece, there's money to be picked up on, but you have to get that mindset going again of like,
Right.
how do you actually do this, seemingly boring task in your business that I've never had to think about? And how can I bring Roos to bear? How can I do something? And I think I'm catching what you're saying. It's very awkward feeling to them, I think,
Yeah.
of
And
who am I to get in there?
it's hard to say, well, somebody's got a successful formula. Why would I do anything else? Right.
Right.
But I do feel like AI is very much like the internet was. I mean, people say that, but I got to say, I lived through it. you know,
Yes, you did. Yes, you
I
did.
I was hooking companies up to the internet before it became public in 1994.
Oh,
And
gee.
so when I started my consulting business in 1995, that's what I did. And, I can look back and see where I made money and where I didn't make money because I
Right.
didn't take on certain things. And, so today is the same thing. Like people have to learn it. And those who jump in with both feet are going to make most of the money.
I think you're right. I think you're right. What do you think? What do you think of this idea I've been toying with in my head? RPAs have the potential to be just as impactful as the launch of RMMs 20 years ago. What do you think about that?
That's probably true. Part of it is that we always find it difficult to see where we're shifting to a new generation of
Mm,
technology, as
mm,
well as business processes. And so, part of it is you got to step back and say, what's going on? Like, think about where are you going to be 3 years from now or 5 years from now? And nobody has a crystal ball. But if you see technology where you think, I really should have adopted that, well,
mhm.
adopt it now, you know?
Right,
And
right.
and also find ways. That's the other thing. Find ways to make money. People are like, "Oh, I don't know how to make money on cybersecurity." I'm like, "What?" Like, do pretty much anything.
Yes, 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 yes. In fact, man, there was a gentleman that just recently passed away down in Texas, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember his name, but
Oh,
he had to be every bit as do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, Ken Dwight.
Yes. Yes, thank you. RIP Ken. We developed this wonderful friendship over the last few years and talked to him while he's in the hospital after his hip and you just, awesome dude. But he was kind of trying to figure out in his, late retirement years, man, I'd just like to make a couple $1,000s a month and that would make a nice difference. And he was talking about trying to fire up something with a buddy of his that is in insurance. He's like filling out the insurance forms or something like that. And I was like, that's brilliant, Ken. I've watched my clients struggle with it. I've watched, people do a less than great job. I've struggled with it. So I thought that was pretty cool. But to the point of just do something. There's an angle, a niche in there that you can do
Right.
to make that. But I think people get so married to if it's not recurring revenue, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And if they can't immediately figure out how to annuitize it, I think they just kind of say, "Oh, then I'll figure it out later."
What's funny is I think you're right, and at the same time, you always hear people say, "We love our project labor because that's where we make so much money." But what they
Mhm.
mean by project labor is new installs for clients who they then flip over to managed services, which is great.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I
Absolutely.
love that. But it's very different from project labor where you go in and you say, educate me on the problem and I will figure out what the solution is.
Yes, yes, yes. Big distinction there. Let's spend 1 second on Ken. How did you know him?
Um, I actually so I remember everything except I don't remember where I met him, but wild guess. I'm going to say SMB Nation, but uh, I talked to his group a few times and did some
Sure.
podcasts and so
Yeah.
forth. So it's one of those things where he sort of I don't know crept into my life.
Well, just I think we'll pay him some honor here for a second. I met him. We had done 2 or 3 years ago. We did a kind of a what 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 do people think of certain tools? So we sent out this survey to lots of companies, and somewhere in there, random throwaway statement, I said, "It's probably take you less than 30 minutes to fill this out." And I get a voicemail of Ken just like, you said it was going to take 30 minutes. It took me 49 minutes, 18 seconds. And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I better call him. And so I just ate shit for, 7 minutes and turned out that he's a lovely guy. And but it was a funny way to meet somebody where
Right.
it's like, dude, I've got 300 of these things that are coming in that I need to process. Talking to you about it taking you, who are 80 years old, 12, 15 minutes longer than I said, this is not a good use of either of our time. But but I love him for that, and I would tease him about that for a couple of years after that.
It might have been his excuse to introduce himself to you.
It worked. Great angle, not great angle, I don't know, but if that was it definitely worked. So, and he was a prolific pilot, if you don't know this.
Hmm.
He'd gone up to the big air venture Oshkosh, 30 times from down in Texas. So
Wow.
anyway, yeah, best to Ken and whoever's thinking about Ken. All right, Karl, let me ask you to give us a little Karl's view, State of the Union. I'm gonna get some free time with you. I know you charged for your speaking, but I'm gonna try to take advantage of this moment. Give us kind of the hot topic for you. What's something MSPs are just not quite leveraging, or that maybe you see a direction with vendors? Maybe give us a hot take or two if you don't mind.
Well, I would say we've already touched on AI, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing, so I have a State of the Nation address in January every year, and
Okay, good.
I think my 16th is coming up.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, I can give you the one topic that I'm going to dig into, and that is, um, I think private equity is going to cause a lot of trouble for a lot of MSPs. And
For
there's
the MSPs.
Yeah. Well, there's some things that I have blogged about that I really wish we could get some traction on, and nobody cares.
Mhm.
The most obvious one is um, I think you need data portability, right? If I decide to move from one PSA vendor to another, is that the easiest thing in the world or the most difficult thing in the world? Like, where's that on the scale? And do you fear it? Well, that is your data and your client's data, and you should have the right to move that anywhere you want and not lose the integrity of that data. And I just think that's the way all businesses should operate. But in particular, that is a critical thing. And imagine if you have a PSA vendor who disappears, or, you know, part of what private equity does sometimes, they say, oh, you know what? I'm going to divide this into pieces. We're going to put all the debt on this piece, bankrupt them, and then everybody else is going to make more money. Well, what if the thing that they put all the debt on is your big vendor? And so I honestly believe that we're going to see that in the next few years. And it will hurt some MSPs because
That's
they continually ignore the fact that there's problems out there.
Carl. Okay, this is you. Okay, so you've done a lot in LMS, learning management systems, so you're familiar with the SCORM standard, yes?
Hmm.
Where that ensures portability of your content from one
Right.
platform to another. The PSA world, I feel like, I mean, there's, three, four big players now. And in my vantage point, they're just trading licenses between each other. And which is good business for a certain portion of Barry McKinley, because we get the calls saying, I'm going from this one to this one. Can you help me? And it's like, yeah, cool, dude. I'm so sorry to break it to you. It's a $20,000 project.
Right.
And by the way, don't do it. You don't give a shit. We can export this and export that and, try to, talk them out of it. Um, but are you saying in the data portability kind of like, because and I don't know this, can you back up? You don't back up your ConnectWise data. You don't back up your AutoTask data, do you?
Well, it's interesting. If you, and so I'm going to go back and I'm not going to name any names, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
back in the day, there was a PSA vendor who um, kind of partnered with somebody who did a lot of development in their product. And
Mhm,
um, what he actually did was, like, if you signed up with his services,
mhm.
he took their APIs and manipulated them and basically create a copy of your SQL database on his server.
Oh,
And
okay,
so it
wow.
was a backup of your
Yeah,
PSA data. And eventually it was like, okay, you can't be doing that anymore, you know?
no,
Um, and so, I'm sure that each of the vendors has a backup of their own, but even
sure.
if they didn't, if you wanted to back up something from ConnectWise and, import it into Autotask, it's just not going to work,
No,
and I know you've moved data with Excel from one program to another,
right,
QuickBooks, everything plugs into QuickBooks, right?
yeah,
Well, those APIs technically exist. But there isn't a way to do it,
yeah,
and they make it difficult. They make it,
yes,
it's
yes.
sort of like we're going to hold you hostage because
Oh,
that's
yeah,
and if an MSP won't give the client access to their data and holds them hostage, what do we think of that MSP?
right,
That is a
right,
bad actor.
yes.
Well, okay, but vendors get away with it left and right.
How interesting. I'll have to check out some of the end user licensing agreements for some of these tools because I wonder what is stated in there. Because it's yeah, I mean it is a big lift to get your stuff out of there. How interesting, and that is, if I was starting a PSA today, I'd say the functionality we can have that built out, as easily as anything. Getting easy migration to it would be where I would spend my money. Is like, how do I get you off of your incumbent and in here? Because that's a big problem to solve for sure.
Yep.
Data portability. That's a good take. And when you said private equity, I was wondering what aspect you're going to go with, and it has been. interesting. Again, you and I have been doing this long enough that if you told us 15 years ago, billion-dollar funds are going to come in and try to buy MSPs and all these things, we probably would have thought that doesn't sound very likely. But now it's a PE world all day.
Well, and it wasn't that long ago that we had the first billion-dollar company in our space, and now
Yeah.
they're just like everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. With an arena in Miami, I think it is the Kaseya Arena. It's like, how is this a thing? This doesn't make sense. This is our dusty little corner of commerce over here, and now it's this multi-billion-dollar thing.
Yeah,
Well,
and so,
yeah,
yeah, it is a different world, and, there are people who just say, "Look, I'm happy with my $500,000 a year because I'm making $100,000 in profit,
yeah,
so I don't need all your big stuff, and I don't need to grow, and I don't need to hire a salesperson," and on and on and on, and they're very, very happy, and I think that those people will always exist, and they will always be successful, and the bigger and bigger and bigger MSPs get, the more those little guys are going to be able to be the only ones providing true customer service.
yeah,
Everybody in this business promises white glove service, and very few of them deliver it after they get to have about, 20 technicians.
yeah. No, it's very, very true. Very, very true. Yeah, this is interesting, Carl. And let me get one more take from you. I know you have a hard stop here. What is what do you see as, like, I know we've got three big PSA vendors. It seemed like forever, we had two forever. Now we've got a good third, maybe even questionably a fourth. Do you see the PSA world getting bigger in our space, or do you think we're stuck for another 10 years with what we have?
Well, the big guys are always going to get bigger, and that's the
Yeah,
way the
yeah.
world works. But it's almost like, do you remember when RMM moved from a very difficult thing to do to, 42 RMMs?
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
think that we're on the verge of that happening,
Okay.
because there's so much consistency. You teach a class on managing the service board. I teach a class on managing the service board. Guess what? How many statuses do you need, and what do you use them for, and how do you put them in? There's a huge overlap, right? There's
Yes.
common knowledge today.
Yes.
And so, the other thing is, I love Clayton Christensen, the innovator's dilemma and the
Oh,
innovator's
yes.
solution.
Yes.
When you get this big industry and somebody comes in and they say, "Well, I just want this tiny little piece at the bottom." These big guys frequently they say, "Oh, yeah, you have it." Like that's a pain in my neck, and so now you got a foothold. And so I think that some disruption could come in the PSA market from the plethora of up and coming tools that are just going to say, "Look, we do this a different way. We charge by a different model, and we provide portability." We
Yes.
provide
Yes.
transparency.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll see if your fortune telling plays out, but it sure sounds reasonable to me, Carl. Well, listen, this is probably gonna come out sometime in mid-November. Uh,
Oh,
where
then
can
I
people
wore the wrong shirt. I got my
Well,
Halloween
it
shirt
might
on.
work. Where can people find you out in the world? And I'll ask you offline to send me a link to any announcements about your State of the Union. So, where can people find you today, Carl?
Well, smallbizthoughts.com is a place to sign up for my newsletter, and then you definitely won't miss anything. Smallbizthoughts.org is my community, and those are probably the two easiest places. And I have about 30 websites, but those are the two that you can start with.
All
Small
right,
Biz
they'll
Thoughts.
start there then. Excellent, Carl. Thanks for joining the podcast, and everyone else, like, share, subscribe if we earned it. Put some comments in the comment section about anything Carl shared, anything I shared. Tell us we're stupid. Tell us we're awesome. Anything you like. All right,
So I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
you betcha, Carl. More next time. Bye.